I was talking to some folks online about the Path of Wildness and relationship to transcendentalism, and what I wanted to point out from that discussion was that although the Path of Wildness, the concept of the Path of Wildness certainly can be said to be a spin-off of transcendentalism, because the influence of Thoreau and Emerson and the others of the 19th century scholars and philosophers that were seeking after that. The one thing that I particularly, the reason I don't consider myself a transcendentalist, is that there's no spirituality in my thoughts, in my system of thinking here with the Path of Wildness. It's purely secular. It is it's biological. It's very fundamental. It's elemental to the structure of our species, or life on Earth in general. So at least life that has cognition, able to think things out, and maybe even not. Maybe plants even have it. No, it's probably even more fundamental than that. Therefore, I want to point out that the Path of Wildness is without a spiritual component, at least as far as I describe it. Now, I've decided to make, all philosophies are basically open source. I'm calling this an open source philosophy, which is, I get that term from my experience in the software industry, in the computer software industry, where we would have things like the Unix operating system being an open source operating system that people could access the code, modify, contribute, and improve. I think philosophy and other endeavors of thought are similar, and there's nothing new to the idea of open source philosophy. People have been doing this for as long as humans have been thinking, basically taking ideas, building upon them. Just as I'm extrapolating a bit from transcendentalism and my own experience, and adding my own experience, and coming up with something called the Path of Wildness. I love the idea of applying the term open source philosophy. It just seems, it makes me giggle. So I'm going to call this an open source philosophy project. And how does that come back to the spirituality part? I'm not saying necessarily that there isn't a God, or in this statement. I'm simply saying that God's presence is not apparent to me. The wonders of the world are not enough for me to assign that to an ascension conscious planning and organizing entity behind that. Now, I don't mean this to get off into spin off as statements like that and to spin any conversation off into the weeds, and I don't mean to do that. But what I mean to say is, if you look at the Path of Wildness as I present it, it's biological. It's living life with our minds attuned, more almost subconsciously attuned to our first intuition, which I believe that we have a way, our brains have a way of reacting to the world and coming up with quick judgments about responses, and that sometimes those are very beneficial, and that they are the kind of things that call us to action and let us to begin an adventure or to begin an endeavor. A lot of what happens is that when we, with our bigger, higher, that all comes from the lower part of the brain, the older part of the brain, the reptilian part of the brain, the even older part that basically are instinctual. Our bigger brain, our newer brain, has the ability to think things through in such a way that for many it causes them to stop the process of basically stops them in their tracks. They spin out, or their wheels are spinning, not moving the vehicle forward. The vehicle of life forward, is they're thinking about things too much, and that's a good thing in many ways, because things like choosing where your financial portfolio, or where you're going to send your kids to school, or whether or not you're going to be outfitted with the proper materials before you climb K2. That kind of stuff, you need to think about that. But if you're taking a stroll through the woods and you want to just enjoy the meander and have the little adventures along the way, then just follow the path of your first intuition. If you are ready to embark on some endeavor in life and you don't know how to get started, and you find yourself bogged down in the process of considering all the options, follow the path of your first intuition and begin the steps along the way. The whole theory, this whole idea came about because in my fortunate role as someone who has a little bit of an audience on the internet, I get contacted by people, and I'm an adventurer, so to speak. I'm an adventurer. People sometimes look at me that way, and they write to me and they say, I want to adventure. I want to experience life. I want to move to Japan. I want to do this, but I can't. I'm scared. I'm thinking. I don't know what to do. I don't have enough money. How do I get started? What do I do? And these are typically young people in their 20s with very little to lose. And Japan's a very safe place. And I want to write to them and say, just make your decision and begin following your footsteps in that direction. That is the path of wildness, utilizing your instinctual feelings, which in the end may yield something very grateful, very much of a blessing in terms of your art. Because when it comes down to it, at the end of life, it's not a matter of who has the most toys that wins. It's about who is able to have enough time to spend in their art, the thing that makes them giddy on the inside, the things that makes them eager to wake up in the morning and pursue the day. We can't do that all of our lives, most of us. We're not blessed enough to do that. But if we have something that we enjoy, it's our avocation, in addition to our vocation, whatever our job is, then it really makes life something else. And the time that you have in your youth is the time to really pursue that and make that happen. If you don't train yourself to step lively upon the path of wildness, and be willing to accept the folly that may come, the mistakes, the errors, the dangers that may come by doing so, then you will find yourself sequestered away as you get older, because it's a habit that you have to start young if you're going to really make it and instill it into your life. If you don't, whatever you do in your young years, that is probably who you will be later on. So this message that I have of the path of wildness is really for young people. Children is really not really children as much as adolescents on their way to adulthood, they're learning how to exercise their wings and their independence, and learn how to step lively, like I say, onto the path, and to without really knowing necessarily where they're going, but maybe having a vague idea of the general direction, like I like to say, where the leaves are blowing, the direction of the leaves are blowing, the track of the beast through the woods, the where the shadows lie, the direction that the shadows lie. These things to me are poetic in their inspiration. To me, this is all practical, biological stuff. It is in using our natural biological intuition to help us through life. There's nothing spiritual about it. Now, what I'm going to come back to and say is, in terms of the open source thing again, is that others that may be able to perceive some spirituality there can add that to that if they like. There may be, in fact, maybe there is some spiritual component behind the curtain, but simply the criteria that I use, I'm unable to see it. So perhaps it's there. Perhaps there is a spiritual element. Maybe the transcendentalists were right if you were using the type of a walk along the path of wildness as a means of apprehending and approaching something more divine. I don't know. There you go. So the path of wildness is a secular pursuit with potential for more spiritual ramifications. Just not for me at this time. It's not apparent for me. Okay, take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Have a great day.